In this video, we're going to discuss Reactive Form. How do you create it and how do you set it up? We're going to begin with working with a form that is just Angular. We don't have any PrimeNG in here yet. This project does have PrimeNG, but we're not going to use it at this point. I just want to explain and show you how a form works. We begin by setting up a form group. So a form group is something that contains items that are going to be in your form. In this case, we have sub-form groups. So you can see here, there's a form group for the whole thing, and then we have a name item in this form group. But this is also a form group. It has first and last name. And then we have address form group. This is a sub-form group. Think of it that way. In here we have street, city, state, and zip. Then we have contact. In here we have email and phone. This will make a little more sense as we get into it. For right now, we are just going to define these. Now in our HTML, we have our form group defined here, so it has to be on the form, and form group is entry. Let me make that bigger. Form group is entry form. Now in here, this is important to understand because I have a form group that's called name. I need to have this group of entry points defined within the name bracket. So this is going to be, so basically from here to here, think of this as having in your JSON, this is going to be braces, curly braces. This is your opening curly brace up here, and this is your closing curly brace. That's the way it's going to be formed. And then in there, you're going to have first and last, with first having the data value after it and last having the data value after it. Down here we saw address. So if we go back in here, so here's our address. Again, here's going to be our opening curly brace in our JSON, our output, and this is going to be the closing curly brace in our JSON. Let's get that all on the screen so you can see it. The form control name, so here's form group name, okay, address, form control name. Control name is usually the data value. So this is a form control that we're creating here. And you'll see this one has a validator. You can put validators required on anything that's a required field. And I've only got it on one here. We're going to add more to this to build it up. But for now, I just want to explain how this part here works. Now let's explain how we get the error code. So this has been reset, so everything is going to be plain, and it won't show success or error until we actually enter something in there. So let's go up here, and this is the one that's got required field. I've touched it. Now let's go out. You can see that it's got an error. If I do a reset, it clears that. So it only makes it invalid if you touch it. So now I'm going to put a name in there, and you can see what I'm doing here is I want to illustrate on the same screen how this is filling out as it's going. You can see here, this is the name, first and last. Remember the open and close curly braces? This is your JSON output. When you hit submit, this is what's going to be sent. So if we go here to Main Street, now notice I can put just about anything in these and it says it's okay. So when things were missing, so let's take out mark, notice that you can't submit and notice that the screen goes away. So it's invalid. If it's valid, this will show up. So I'm going to put James in there. And now you see that James is showing up. Now notice that the contact information is not in the correct format. We have nothing around that requiring a real phone number or a real email. And the zip, we can put anything in there. It doesn't matter. The state, we can put anything in there. Town, well, that's pretty hard to, that one's going to be open to whatever they want. And same with this. First name and last name, they can put whatever they want in there. But zip has to be 5 or 5-4. Those are the two valid types of zip codes. A state should be two characters, and it should only be one of the 50 state abbreviations. So we'll get into how to handle that. Email. Email has to have an ampersand, COM or NET. It has to have some sort of a valid extension for it to be valid. Now, these, if I get rid of all this, you know, it's hard to see, but there's green highlight around all of these. We can increase that so it's wider. Let's go back over to the code. And in the code, we're going to make this 5 pixels just so that it stands out. And boy, it stands out. All right, so now you can see here, we're going to do the same thing for invalid, just to make it stand out. Normally you wouldn't do 5, you would do 1 or 2. It's got to be noticeable by the user. So as the user's looking at the screen, they can say, oh, I got problems here. Now when I reset that, notice that everything resets. And if I touch, only after I touch does it get the valid or invalid. And again, that is because of this validator required. Let me put this in the last name as well. I'm going to save that. Let's go back to the web. Now if I touch that, now touch that. Now you notice this also went red because it's invalid. You have to have okay, so I got James Donner in there, and now it's green. So I could submit this right now without the rest of this information, but we need to make sure that the form is filled out in totality. We make sure that everything's filled out by adding validators required to all fields. This will require every field to be validated. Now, if you're not using reactive forms, you've got to write a lot of extra code to handle all this. This is all I have to do, just put that in there, and now the whole form has to have something in it. Let's go back to the web. So if I touch these and I don't put anything in them, you can see that everything is now red. So I have to have data in there. If I put data in, I'm good to go. And there it is. Notice this didn't come up until it was complete, until the form was valid. Now, how do I do that? Let me show you real quick. In here, here's my, this is what is used to pull that up so that you can see the output. And I'm just saying that this block, this div is hidden until is valid is not true. Actually inside, if you go inside here, it says not. So that not entry form is valid. So it's checking the actual form itself to see if it's valid. There's pristine and there's some other properties you can look at. But this is how this part works. Now if we go over here, we have touched, untouched, dirty, and pristine. So if it's dirty, it'll go orange. Now notice what I had to do here. I had to say input and it has been touched. If I don't have that, watch what happens. I'm going to take that off. I do a reset. Even though I haven't touched it, it's showing everything as invalid. Let's put that back. So now input, so input is not a class, it's a tag. So the input tag, see the input right here? That's what that's referring to. Has a value, or it's set to ng touched. Let's look at that in the browser. So if I reset this, and let's go to inspector. Let's touch this one right here. And if you'll notice, here's name, and here's entry group. And you see it says here, ng invalid and ng touched. If I reset that, it says it's pristine. It's invalid because it's a required field, but it's untouched. So once I touch it, that untouched will go to touched. So now it's ng touched. It doesn't happen until I leave the box. Let me do that again. So if I click in it here, it still shows untouched. But if I click out here now it gets changed to touched. That is where those classes are coming from. They're being set behind the scenes by the reactive form. Now we've entered in the validation for each of these. So if we go down, now this one, say I put in an incorrect value, it will know. So if I do NJ, New Jersey, it's fine with that. So let's put in a zip. Let's put in garbage, it doesn't like it. Let's put in just 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, doesn't like that. 2, 3, 4, 5, it likes that. If we do it likes the 5-4. Let's try an email. It likes that. Let's try a phone number. It likes that. So you can do it that way. You can do it that way. Let's see if you can put one in there. You can. Let's say we want to do it that way. So you can enter a phone many different ways there. Now you can set up a specific format, but let me show you how that works. Let's go back to the code. So we're using pattern. So this one, there's just a validator for email. We're just using that straight. But then for the state code, what I did is I created a regular expression with all the state codes and all 50 state codes. So my editor filled that out for me. I just started it and it knew what I was doing and just filled out the rest. I love AI for that reason. Then for the zip code pattern, this allows the 5 or the -4. Now notice this question mark, it's not required. Now if we get into here, this is the phone number pattern. So the phone number, the open parenthesis and the closed parenthesis are optional. You can do a space, you could do a dot or a hyphen. And then here's three digits, 3 digits, 4 digits. And it shows this is optional. I wonder how that would work. Let's go back to the web. Let's try. Oh, it likes that. So you could put a phone number in that way. Now if you add one more character, it won't be right. So this gives you quite a bit of flexibility there. Now you may want a particular format that your phone number is in which case you would change the regular expression pattern to match exactly what you're looking for. One more thing I want to let you know about. When you're sending a validator, an individual one, you don't need square brackets around it. But if you have more than one validator, you do need square brackets like you see here. And that's because this is an array of validators. So you can put as many validators in here as you want. But if you're doing one, you can get away with just that. If you're doing more than one, you need to have the square bracket, comma delimited between them, and you can insert as many validators as you want there. I hope this video has helped you. Please like and subscribe, and we will continue to make more videos. Thank you.